if you want to create a future, you have to imagine it first, visualize it first. And this is where the arts comes in because you have an opportunity to reach out to a lot of people.
What do you think about when you hear art? Do you think about business and technology? No? Maybe you should. Because even though the beauty and expression of an art piece may be priceless, it normally does have a price tag. And also in the art industry, there is still a lot of room for disruption and great new businesses. My name is Antonia Lorenz, and this is the Foundality Africa podcast. Our guest on today's episode is the founder and curator of feminee art, an art studio in Nigeria which aims to redefine African art of the feminine form. I'm introducing Charlene Chickizeh.
My name is Charlene Chickizeh. I'm a Nigerian art curator and a digital entrepreneur. I'm the founder of feminee art studio, currently running here in Lagos. I'm also very passionate about things that relate to African femininity and entrepreneurship and tech as well. So my business or my brand is built around all of this.
In this episode, Charlene will tell us how she brought feminine art to life and how she came up with her very own business model, combining the arts, business, and technology. This episode is also packed with hands-on advice on how to build your own support system, how to be a leader, and how to use creative techniques to stay inspired and motivated. So let's start with the early beginnings of feminine art. What was Charlene's inspiration?
When I started feminine art, the idea was to build a pedestal presenting female inspired artistic creativity, aesthetics offering to the public, mirroring the importance of like the female gender along with my relative experiences and observations as an African woman. And then also with the fact that we're at a point where there is like a female uprising, like there's gender equality, like everybody's trying to break free from the shackles of confinement, not even from the continental basis, but from other subconscious contexts in terms of spirituality, like religion, in terms of politics, in terms of a lot of other things. And I decided to question some of these stereotypes. I had to take a step back and after having a reflection within myself, looking at all these things, looking at women around me, looking at all these experiences, I'm like, we have to tell our own story. And what better way to do it through the arts? Because art is an incorporation of education, of literature, of learning, of visual arts, of multimedia, which is all aesthetically pleasing to the eyes. And that is how Femme Feminine was birthed.
So after coming up with the idea, how did Charlene start? It all began when she was still at university.
It was in my third year, and it was rough in the beginning because first off, how Femme Feminine started, it was just supposed to be an exhibition where I worked with a couple of artists to create some art spaces that touch themes revolving around women. So this initial thing was supposed to talk about the sexualizing or the emphasizing sexual objectification of Black women, of Black bodies in terms of art. Because from what we have been seeing, from they look at it from an objective view instead of looking at it from a subjective view, like with the female form or with the woman, with the Black woman as a subject, talking about her stories, her trials, her travails, her tribulations, and all of that. So I decided to create something that was going to or going to entertain people, yeah, talk about these social issues and also educate them.
So when putting in the work, researching and consulting, Charlene gained confidence and a reputation in the art space.
Along the line of creating this exhibition, I had to establish myself as an art curator in the Nigerian art system or in the Nigerian art ecosystem. Of course, Of course, being an entrepreneur, like right from when I was much younger, I already knew that I had the potential to like be a trendsetter because if I get really bored easily when it comes to like regular day-to-day jobs. So I feel like for me to be able to thrive, for me to be able to survive in this kind of African ecosystem, I have to be able to create my own reality.
So, as she realized that to create the life she wants, she has to create her future independently as an entrepreneur, and form feminine art has to become a real business. And sometimes, just when in need, and when hard work meets opportunity, the right people come around at the right time.
I hadn't even had a name for the brand when I spoke to somebody about my idea, like my one of my sponsors about my idea. I didn't even know he was going to be a sponsor at that time. I didn't know that at that point as well he was looking for like an art brand to invest in because he had seen the potential in art and how it is needed as a form of solace, not just as a form of business or any other thing. So I spoke to him about that, and he didn't even mention or say anything about. He just just nodded and was like, "Oh, that's a good idea," all of that.
But how did she convince this sponsor to invest in her? She wasn't even trying to.
That's another thing like entrepreneurs need to understand. You need to be sure that your core values are aligned because I feel like people can see through that, especially sponsors, investors. They can see through that. That's how I feel like that's how people get angel investors, right? And they can tell that you are in tune with your values or you're in tune with what you want to do. Like there is some form of alignment. It's easier for you to like sell them that idea or for you to convince them because you yourself are convinced that you can do it with the little resources or whatever it is you have.
So, especially in the early stages of a company, it is extremely important, maybe even the only thing that matters, that your values, your goals, and your drive are in line with what you're doing. Because if they're not, you won't seem credible and you won't convince anyone. But if they are, make sure to bring your vision out there and that everyone who needs to know it knows it. At that point, Charlene had a clear vision, artists, a plan, and she also had a potential investor. She knew she has to turn this into a real business. Here's how she went about it.
So I did a lot of research on okay, how do you run a business, how do you run a brand, how do you brand it? Because first off, I'm a lover of the aesthetics and I'm also into visual art. So if I'm running a brand, my brand has to be physically pleasing to the eyes because we're talking about femininity, we're talking about black femininity. It's a sophisticated brand. So I had to create a brand name. I had to do a proper research on all these branding processes to get to the point of now having an exhibition because at that point it's now an entity because I now have artists who are under the brand. We now have like partners, we have sponsors, we have people that we're collaborating with. So it now blew up into a proper business.
One thing that has been very important for Charlene's journey was having a support system around her.
I have learned that in entrepreneurship, at some point, you cannot suck it all in. Like there's only so much you can give yourself, right? Yeah, and one or two push is what you need. One or two push, you just need like a push from somebody mentally with one word, two words. That's why it's important you have a support system.
Figuring out what such a support system is, who belongs there, and how to build and maintain it has been an ever coming back theme in Charlene's journey. She told us her best tips on building one, alongside some stories and experiences from her own life. Let's start with a story where Charlene's support system helped her to envision and to grow more.
When I first started the exhibition, it was supposed to be an exhibition of just 12 walks, maybe in a nice fancy restaurant in Lagos, or maybe a small gallery. Then I spoke to my uncle, and then he was like, if you are going to go through the efforts of doing an exhibition, why not just do an artwork of like 40 works or of 30 works or more? So I now sat down. I'm like, true, that's true. If I have the capacity to do 12 walks, I might as well just do 30, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
I now like that just gave me like that's why perspective is important, and it's important for you to surround yourself around people or things that motivate you or inspire you to do better or push you to do better. So he had seen like that I had the potential to do that. So look for people who see that potential in you and are able to propel you to growth.
Here's what happened when she had the belief and support that she needed.
I went back and I'm like, okay, so I can actually do 30 or 40 walks. And then at the end of the day, of exhibiting about 40 walks with a lot of artists. And it was a full blown event for about a week plus almost 2 weeks. After that time, like even during the week of the exhibition, I got another sponsor.
But not everyone in Charlene's life was that supportive and positive.
I mean, I told a couple of my friends when I was inviting them before like flyers started coming in. I'm like, oh, I'm doing an exhibition. So are you
Mm-hmm.
going to come for it? I'll send you an invite, all those things. And then some of them be like, oh, hi, yeah, sure, I'll come. But what I understood later on was like, I spoke to a friend when I gave her, like, I sent her an invite, like a link to the Eventbrite. And then she registered and then she came back to me, sent a message. She was like, oh, I didn't know you were serious. So it kind of put me off. It kind of put me off because I'm like, I've told you these things. Like I've been telling you this thing. Like, like young African entrepreneurs or people who are not entrepreneurs able look to being entrepreneurs. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of one of the issues they face is not having a good support system or not having enough
Mm-hmm.
people that believe in them. Because trust me, like I know how I feel like when my father or my cousin who I look up to tells me I'm proud of you. It feels like $1 million. That is one thing that
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs need as well. You need those positive energy. You need to be in that like mind frame to be able to push for the stars or push for like the highest limit you can get.
So, a support system is very important. But how do you build one for yourself? Often it starts with your family, but it doesn't have to. We have heard an outstanding example of that in the 5th episode with Ricky Rappa Thompson. Check it out after this if you haven't listened to it already. Charlene shared with us 6 pieces of advice for building a support system. So get ready. Here they are.
From my own experience, I feel you should be true to yourself, be authentic and embrace your individuality. Because most of the people who I have met who are like my key partners or have become key sponsors, like I've met them on other levels. Apart from just like a regular, okay, I want you to sponsor my business. Maybe we share a
Mhm.
common interest. Somebody read my article, that kind of thing. So be true to yourself because that way you're able to connect with people whose values align with yours.
Did you ever wonder how to become an interesting personality? Charlene, for example, loves art, but she also loves tech and business. And by combining that, she can create something that people will notice. So dig deep, and apart from only focusing on one thing, celebrate your diverse interests. People will see it, and they will be intrigued.
For me, I've always been a loner, but running a business has taught me the importance of building relationships. And also in the art
Mhm.
industry, most of what we do thrives on like our relationships because people don't hand out money to somebody they do not know to throw an exhibition.
Mhm.
Like they want to have some background story on you to open yourself to other opportunities, other sort of interests, because that way you can genuinely connect with individuals.
Third, be a leader.
You need to have some form of leadership skills, like either soft skills or emotional intelligence, or just like these basic skills to help you read the room when you're in that kind of situation. Because when you have these tendencies or leadership qualities, people tend to be drawn to you. You're a trendsetter, you're creating an ecosystem, you're creating something for people. So you need to be able to connect to people.
You have to be someone they see potential in. And you have to be a leader and a role model yourself. And a leader is not just someone who achieves a lot, but someone who is there for people, giving them space to learn and grow themselves.
You need to read the room. Say you go for a team meeting, listen to them. Like, let them air their grievances. Let them give you their opinions, their options. Because being a good leader entails being a good listener. Because there are times where we have team meeting. Like, I have an idea of what we need to do to get to our goal. But what I have learned over time is when you go into the meeting and you have an open mind, you see other opportunities in opportunities that you did not even think existed because your
Yeah.
team member has brought up something or like they have brought their own perspective to the table. So you have this pool of people who are passionate about what you're doing as well. So you listen to them and then that way you can forge ahead. And by the end of the meeting, we already have like a clear and concise direction of where we're going or what we want to do, and everybody's happy, everybody's in tune and aligned with what we're doing. So that is a skill like that I have tried and I have learned to hone over time.
No one has a monopoly on good ideas. And your team members and employees, they are also your support system. They're even the closest ones, so make sure to give them space and to let them support you. And Charlene's fourth point. How do you then keep those people in your life?
I had to learn like every day to manage my relationships, check in with people, find out how they're doing, connect with them on a genuine level. That's why it's important that you draw people who align with your core values. Because for me to continually have a relationship with you, I have to genuinely have some form of basic level of friendship or relationship with you.
And her fifth and super important point, also for Africa's future. It always goes both ways.
It goes both ways. Like you don't just always go there and dump it all on them. Like you also have to be a good listener. You also have to be their support system. So because when you reach out to people or when you speak about like what you're facing, you might meet another entrepreneur who has a small solution like to the current problem that you're facing. That's why collaboration and partnerships is something that is very important for us in Africa, like not just across the continent but even within the continent, because some of us have like solutions to each other's problems, and that is the only way we can grow.
The sixth and final advice, find a mentor and what you should look for in them.
So I always specify that you pick a mentor whose reality is something close to your reality. Or if you're in Nigeria, you might pick a mentor doing well in one or two industries similar to yours, or something that an industry that thrives that you look up to as well, an important industry, and then you can just learn from the business model they have built or like the lifestyle they live. And if you're able to reach out to them, tell them that you want them to be your mentor, like they don't have to give you anything, just want a one-on-one relationship with them. And of course you have to be serious about what you're doing for them to give you attention.
Next up, we're talking about the art space and industry. Art can be beautiful, it can initiate change, and it can be expressive. But it can also be a very good business. Charlene will tell us how a business in art can become really successful. But first of all, she gives us insight in her own creative process.
As an entrepreneur, like whatever industry, like there are things you see, like especially for me who is into the arts, I need to visualize my reality. Like I'm drawn by colors, I'm drawn by visuals, I'm drawn by all this, by media, so I create a muse board for me that reminds me of what I need my brand to look like, or what I need my project to look like, or what I need the company to look like. So that way, when I look at it again, it gives me hope. Oh, we can't give up now. We still have a long way to go. So you can be that. So I have them digitally. Any of these tools that allow you infuse text, links, all of this. So say I read an article and I see two lines that make me have some type of feeling in terms of how I want my brand to be seen, or some two lines that inspire an inspiration for a next exhibition.
This is how she actually uses it when she's in need of motivation.
As an entrepreneur, you would definitely have down days. There are days where, I wanted to just call up my partner and say, look, can we just, pack up and just go home? Like, let's just rest. I'm tired of this, you know? So when I'm in that hole, when I'm in that level of down, this is an option for when you do not have a strong support system. Because so I go to the news board. I also have one for like my own personal life, like to the news board and then scroll through, read up on these things that you have been collating, this data you have been collating. They kind of reenact that feeling I had earlier. Like nobody would do that for you if you do not take the initiative to like empower yourself any way you can in terms of emotional stability and in terms of propelling yourself mentally.
But not just staying positive is important, but also your balance. Because as an entrepreneur and leader, a lot of pressure is on you. Charlene explains how to stay balanced and why this is especially important in the arts.
You need to be mentally balanced, also physically balanced. That's why exercises, meditation, infuse all these things into your daily practice. Because as an entrepreneur, not only are you managing like these business ventures, you're also managing people's sources of income. You're managing people's opportunities. As an art curator, I'm also managing people's arts, people's creativity, because you need to learn how to communicate with these artists without hurting their feelings, because it takes a lot for somebody to put themselves out there in terms of creativity. So you need to learn to hone those skills.
Next, we're hearing about Form Feminine Art's business model and how they operate. What's super interesting about it is that it's very unique, and the way she put the different parts together really reflect herself and build up to her vision. Let's see how she did it.
We really pretty much had to create our business model from the scratch, because like I mentioned earlier, where we have branches, or we have ties in like the art industry, the business industry, and the tech industry.
Let's first hear about the business side.
Art, in terms of what we're doing, is also a way for us to put African art on a global pedestal and not just within Africa. Like we're also trying to put this artwork out there. And in terms of business, like of course the artists have to make money. You also have to make money to sustain your business, even though like the art is not solely a money making venture. It's a social infrastructure as well. It's a social industry. But in the long run, of course, you need to have like sustainable growth. And in terms of making money, of course, we make money from the art. We have our percentages that we get from selling art for the artists.
Going international was both in line with their vision and it's a great opportunity. But how do they even reach people who might be interested?
We also function through email marketing. It's always important to like leverage your clients database and also like your general database of people who you have come in contact with, either investors, potential investors, or clients, or even like people you would see as potential clients, because there are people who I have met initially, but I've added them to like the database or to like the network. And after a while, they have become clients because they have seen one or two pieces that interest them, or they want to buy, or they want to work with you for this project or this or that.
We meet so many people every day, and we can use those contacts. Collect all contacts of people that you meet and find interesting. Put them in an Excel sheet, and whenever you have developed something that you want to push out, you already have a database of potential clients or partners. Here's how they incorporated the tech part. First of all, how it affects their operations.
My team is virtual. Like we've been working virtually even before like COVID. And that's where it comes to play for entrepreneurs in Africa who do not have access to physical structures. And then they are running business or a venture that enables them to communicate online or have a digital space. And it also translates in the long run when your business has developed and you need like data analytics to push your business or improve your business operations or strategies.
But tech doesn't just help build structures. Everything will include tech in the following years. So if you don't move in that direction as well, you will be left behind. Charlene has an example of someone who felt that change way earlier than expected during this COVID period.
Somebody told me about a business that was into print. They were just doing prints for flyers, catalogs, all of this. And somebody had mentioned to them like you need to take this digital, employ a couple of young people to do graphics for you. So you can also have an arm of your business that is creating graphics and not just like physical flyer. So he's like, no, he doesn't need it. He's making enough money from prints anyway. You know, he's the number one print, whatever in his city or stuff. And then COVID hits and he's not making any other money.
So Charlene knows. Also, their product has to be tech-based. Here's how they're doing it.
We've also infused a digital model which allows for all these physical relations that we've been having or the physical operations that we've been having to go digital. So we have made a hybrid to create a stable or a new ecosphere where you can still have contact with the artist or like with the exhibition in real time, like while we're having an exhibition wherever it is we are having it in the world.
And because tech is such a crucial part of forme feminee art, they also encourage their artists to use it. Which brings us right to our next point, the use of art in their business model.
We're also pivoting into digital art so artists can experiment with multimedia, visuals, video, which is also a key brand, core brand value for me in terms of creativity. We encourage artists to put in their individuality, you know, encourage more self-expression because art for me is all about, and especially in the Nigerian industry, is about innovative practices. Like, so these artists need to immerse themselves. They need to immerse themselves to be able to come up with things that are genuine and authentic. And we also need to preserve the authenticity of the art. That is also what forme feminine is.
So altogether, this is forme feminine art's business model.
So all of these things have been infused into a business model that works for us in terms of having a functioning website, having like this networks that we do email marketing to, and then exhibitions and also other partnerships with other galleries. So that way we have a pool of artists, a pool of artworks, and also a pool of opportunities, almost like a supply chain to be able to distribute these works or commission artists or give artists commission.
As you can see, a business model doesn't have to be something you just copy from others to your own business. It is something you have to create yourself. But just keep in mind that your goal is to create value in the end. In Charlene's case, she even describes her business model as a supply chain for art. Truth said, coming up with a business model that works is really difficult. How does all of that become reality? Charlene explains how.
First of all, understand your core values. When you understand your core values, you understand your target audience, then you can build a structure of how to reach out to them. And when you reach out to them, how do you make money? You have all these wonderful ideas, you have all these amazing ideas, you have all these dreams. But then being an entrepreneur, you need to understand what is feasible. So for me, when Form Feminine first started, right, I had all these ideas, I had all these dreams, but I needed to work with my resources. So that also would, for Africa specifically, that would also guide your business model.
So start with what you have. just get going. But that's not it yet.
But you should also leave room for expansion. As an entrepreneur, your goal is to make money. Your goal is to build something. Your goal is to create this venture. You need to make room for expansion visually, physically, in your business model, whatever you're doing. Make room for expansion. Do not like or limit yourself, especially when it comes to like choosing a brand name or to pretty much create room for growth when you're building a brand. Do not have a small mindset. Like there are a lot
Yeah.
of things that are possible. Like a lot of things are possible if you can imagine them and take practical steps.
Now, lastly, I was very interested in where Charlene's business is going and what her vision for Africa is.
Our vision is to be the leading platform presenting Afro female inspired artistic creativity, aesthetics, and offering to the public, and then to expand the horizons of African contemporary art globally. That's our vision and mission for Form Feminine art. Africa, like I want Africa to, when it comes to entrepreneurship, because like at the beginning of this session, we spoke about how entrepreneurship in Africa is like one of the best things that happens to Africa, and it's actually one of the things that would propel Africa to the forefront of global economic growth. My vision for Africa is for us to be like one of the leading continents in terms of infrastructure, in terms of productivity, creativity, because in a way, the fact that we're developing or some countries are underdeveloped have created a ripple effect of a lot of creativity and aesthetic values that have not yet been seen in the world, like globally, put on the global pedestal.
That's it for this episode of the Foundality Africa podcast. Thank you so much for listening. But this is also the last episode of the first season. I know, something will be missing, but we're not all gone. You can still follow us on social media, where we will post content in the meantime, and where we will give you insight in the production of the second season. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and so on, under the name Foundality. And speaking of the second season, we want to involve you in making it. So please let us know, whose story would you love to hear, and which topics do you want us to cover? If you're new, you can and should listen to earlier episodes in the season. And if you want to know more about us, or if you want to leave us a message, visit foundality.com. Until next time, see you then.